Okay. Well, Lori, do you want me to introduce you?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So I'm very excited to have Lori on the call. She is actually part of 2 clubs, and she's helping. Which district is it, Lori?
District 62 here in Michigan.
So District 62, she has definitely helped them along the way with pathways. I have been with Lori on a couple of her presentations for pathways, and I definitely have to say that it's the best pathways sessions I've had, and I think it's because she's able to really bring us back down to the foundations and help us learn those little steps before we get to the big pathways. And I think that's so crucial, and I think that's where some people struggle, is those little pieces. So I'm so thankful to have Lori on here. Appreciate her time, and I really hope you get a lot out of her session.
Thank you, Serena, and thank you all of you for joining today. We're going to cover today some pathways basics, but just a few of the basics just to get you started, because there's a lot to pathways, isn't there? We're going to cover what is pathways, how to select a path, Basecamp 101, starting with level 1 projects, and completing a project. Throughout the presentation, I'll have a slide that will indicate that you can ask some questions. We'd ask that everyone keep your computers and phones on mute so we can get the best recording possible. We'll share this recording so that you can review it and others can see it, those who weren't able to come. Serena, I'm hearing no one's hearing me. Is that true?
I hear you.
I hear you fine.
Yeah.
All right. Perhaps it's just I got pinged by one person.
Oh, Carol.
All right. Well, I'm going to go on since I do have people hearing me. I've got a couple who can't, so it may be we had some issues with Serena. I'm going to put others can hear me in the chat here. So let's get started. What is pathways? Now, you guys should all know who this gentleman is, our founder, Dr. Smedley. And can you tell me who, I guess put it in the chat, when was Toastmasters founded? Do you know? It was a long time ago, wasn't it? Any guesses? I know somebody knows. You're close, Serena, but go back a little further. That's right. Someone's got the right answer. 1924. Now think about what life was like back in 1924 when Toastmasters was founded. Did Dr. Smedley have access to any of these things? Right? He didn't have a cell phone. He didn't have a computer. He probably could not even conceive of such things, or the capability that we have now to instantaneously communicate with people all over the world. It's not just a whole new century, but a whole new different world than what Dr. Smedley was raised in when he founded Toastmasters. Now, he began by writing a basic training book that had speeches, and then there's our beloved Competent Communicator and Competent Leadership books, along with the advanced manuals. And those did a great job in helping to develop a lot of communicators, helping us be more confident, and helping us grow as leaders as well. But in 2015, the board of directors had to take a close look at Toastmasters, looking at its great history. We're almost 100 years in existence, but the board had to consider what would it take for Toastmasters to live on another 100 years. So they decided they needed to update Toastmasters, update the education program to take into consideration the world that we live in today. And they did that by what they call pathways and paths. So the paths are just different avenues of learning that you can take. Now there's 10 paths. Well, not really, is there? Because now there's a new path on the block, the engaging humor one. And these paths give you different ways of adding new skills to your toolbox, to your life, whether for your personal life or your professional life. So Pathways is just a new education program that allows us to develop the communication and presentation skills like never before. It's everything we've always loved about Toastmasters, but it's modernized for the 21st century. With Pathways, we're able to develop skills in areas that Dr. Smedley could not have even dreamed about. With Pathways, we get to decide what areas of our life we want to develop and enhance based on the goals we have. Pathways is still the same Toastmasters we've always loved. We'll still give speeches, we still have our meetings, and we'll take leadership roles in our meetings and clubs. But it allows us to learn even more skills that are so relevant for our life today. Now, Pathways began the first district in January 2017. My other district, 62, we launched on October 31st, 2017. We call that day Pathoween. Can you guess why? Now, in District 11, we launched on February 13 of last year. I wonder what we could have called Pathways if we'd launched on Valentine's Day. I bet we would have come up with something. The final districts launched in May of last year, and the full transition will be complete on June 30 of 2020. Now, what does this mean for us, the full transition? We need to remember that members have different options depending on when they join Toastmasters during this transition. Now, someone who's a current member and joined prior to February 13 of last year, which is when we launched in our district, they can work on the traditional education program, they can do Pathways, or they can do both. They have all of those options. But a new member who joined Toastmasters after we launched Pathways can only work on Pathways. They can't do the Competent Leadership Manual. They can't do any of the other manuals. They can only work in Pathways. There's one more category, previous members. Those who were members prior to when we joined, maybe they joined 2 years ago, didn't renew, but are now coming back. They also can work in the traditional program, Pathways, or both. So they have the ability, as long as Toastmasters can find them in the system, they can work in any of these programs. Pathways really offers opportunities. And I love this quote by one of our previous international presidents. This is what he thought about Pathways. With Pathways, you'll have the opportunity to develop more skills than ever before. Skills that will help you succeed inside and outside of Toastmasters. So Pathways is an exciting new education program for us. All right, are we ready to get down to the good stuff?
Woo-hoo!
Let's go over how to select a path. Now, some of you may already have paths, but this is a good review so you remember how to do it and how to help your current members who are launching Pathways or your guests who are joining. We go to Toastmasters.org, Start Pathways, and there's several options once you click the Pathways menu. And they do change this periodically. But you can go to choose a path or take the assessment. A brand new member only has 2 tiles when they come to the Start Pathways page. They have 2 tiles. They can choose a path, and they can also look at the navigator. Now, this navigator is a great resource, particularly for new people, because it tells them all about Toastmasters, all about pathways, all about the meetings and the roles in meetings, officer roles, contests. It's a nice manual as an introduction to Toastmasters. So make sure you're sharing that with your new members. And it's good for everyone to read as well. When they're ready to select a path, they can select Continue to Path Selection. And then every member gets one free path. If you select online, it's 100% free, and this gives you a choice between all of the paths and all of the materials in Base Camp. If you select a printed materials path, only some of the paths are available in printed materials, only 5 of the 11 paths, and you do pay an additional fee to have the printed materials sent to you. One other consideration, you don't get a choice between all of the electives in levels 3 to 5. You're sent pre-selected electives, and they're pretty much identical between the 5 paths. To get the full experience, select the Base Camp path. You are able, and I'll show you later, you are able to select a spot where you can print out the entire project in case you do want something in writing that you can make notes on or highlight. When you're ready to select a path, click Take Your Assessment. The screen will come up, you select the language, click Start, and it'll take you through some questions asking you what you want to focus on. Based on your answers, you'll end up with a suggested 3 different paths that you can take. The choice of which path that you select is always up to you. You can take the one the system says is the best match, one of the others, or you're able to scroll down and choose any of the other paths. If you want to, if you're still not sure, you can take that assessment again and come back and choose your path at a later time. It's always up to you which path that you select. Once you select your path, you'll receive an email that will confirm that you've selected that path, and in about 10 to 15 minutes, maybe longer, if the system's slow, your path will reside in Base Camp. But don't forget, you now have a new path to choose from, that engaging humor path. So now you have 11 to choose from if you're getting a path on Base Camp. Any questions on selecting a path? I'm going to check the chat now. Any questions, you can put it in the chat. If not, I'll go on. It's a pretty simple process.
Yes.
The assessment, and then select the path. Yes.
You said we can print out the entire path. Is that just if you're getting the printed version?
If you get the Base Camp path in each project, there is a spot where you'll see the PDF of that project. So you can print out each project if you're working on the path in Base Camp. Each
project within a path.
Right. So there's 14 to 15 projects in a path. If you want to print it out, you are able to print out each project once you can access that project. Here. And Belinda, I think we may answer that a little later, your question on how to tell where you left off. I'm going to go over a little bit on working in your path. Someone asked, is there any option to switch paths once a selection is made? You are able to switch paths, but only within 30 days of getting your path. If within 30 days of getting your path you want to switch it, you can by contacting Toastmasters International directly. Let them know which path you want to switch to. But you only have that 30-day timeline. And there's a question, do we have an overview of all the paths? I'm not going to go over that tonight, but in the resources, I'll give you a link for that at the end. I have a one-page comparison chart of all 11 paths that has the required projects. So that will give you some nice information, as well as I have other resources that will help you with pathways. Okay, let's continue on. Thank you for your questions. On there, they are adding new paths. I don't know how many paths they'll be adding. Right now there's 11. With this format, they'll be able to continue to add paths as there's new technologies and new areas that we want to explore as Toastmasters. So the number of paths could be endless. All right, let's start out with Basecamp 101. Basecamp is the computer online where your path will live if you select the Basecamp path. Once you select a path, you now have 3 tiles on that start page. Your view may look a little different depending on if you're an officer and whether you're in multiple clubs. In this view here, I'm an officer, which means if there's someone in my club who wants a printed path, but they don't want or can't go online to buy it, I can facilitate that for them as long as they have their credit card to make the payment for the extra fee for the printed materials. Come to the start page and click on Go to Basecamp to find your path. Here again is the navigator. Remember to read that and make sure to point that out to your new members. When you first go into Basecamp, the screen is kind of grayed out. It's pointing out several areas of Basecamp. You can click Next to continue on, seeing what selections it's pointed out, or you can click the X in the upper right corner to get out of that. This screen does come up periodically, even when it's not your first time, and you can just click that X to stop it. So here's our Basecamp home page. And what I like to do when I'm introducing Basecamp to someone is I like to take them on a tour of these blue tiles here at the bottom. I call it the blue tile tour. So I'm going to give you a quick blue tile tour here, because nearly everything you need in Basecamp you can find in these blue tiles. The first tile, Navigating Basecamp, it has tutorials in here grouped by subject area to help you learn about pathways in Basecamp. Now they have more subjects than what I'm showing here. You click on each tile to reveal the subjects, and then you can watch these tutorials. And they're short tutorials that you can see. Then the My Feedback tile. You go in here to see whether anyone has left you any feedback or left you any badges, and you can also request feedback from other members in this section. You won't get any notification if anyone leaves you any feedback. You would have to come here and check to see whether someone left you a nice comment in your profile. And this is a way that we can give feedback to people to help encourage them and to let them know that they're doing a great job. Badges. Under the My Badges, there's actually 2 sections here. One is the documents, where you can upload files if you want, but you don't have to. You see I've got one file here. Only I can see that file. Only I can upload the files to my profile. And then there's badges if anyone has left you any badges or you've earned some badges. Now there's a couple different types of badges. One is the feedback badge, and that's this middle one. And there's 5 different feedback badges, including inspirational, that we can leave for our fellow club members. We're able to go into their profiles and leave the badge and a comment to let them know, wow, that was an inspirational speech, or you were courageous today. It was your first time as Toastmaster of the meeting, and you did a great job. It's another way that we can encourage and support our fellow Toastmasters. The other type of badge are the learning badges, and that's what you see here on the right and the left. The learning badges are the badges that we earn in our profile as we progress through our path. After someone completes the Icebreaker project, then this activated badge drops into the profile. So this person, we know, is working in the innovative planning path. Everyone in your club is able to see all of your badges. And I like that this activated path is badges there, because I can go into a club member's profile and see what path they're working on, even if I'm not the club's Basecamp manager. It also helps me with my mentor. If I'm mentoring a new member and that person has given the icebreaker, I go into their profile a couple weeks later, and if I don't see the activated badge, I know that they haven't closed that project out, and that tells me they might need help. And so I can reach out to the person and say, hey, I know it's a little tricky. Let me show you how to complete that project so you can access your other 2 projects. And I'm going to show you how to do that tonight. The other types of learning badges you'll see as people complete levels, you'll see the level completion or achievement badges in their profile. Now here's another example of badges. I found this online. This person is working in multiple paths at once. They've got their activated badges. They've completed a number of levels in different paths. And here's one path that they've completed. So once you complete a path, you get another badge of your path, but it says proficient. Now the speech evaluations tile. This has some nice tutorials on how to do evaluations and how to get your evaluations. But there's a really nice tutorial up here in the upper right I want you to notice. It's a how to evaluate tutorial. And this tells you about the Pathways evaluation form and how to use it. Then it goes further by playing a little bit of a speech. And you'll laugh because I do the speech really bad on purpose. After that little bit of a speech plays, they pop up a PDF evaluation form so that you can put in an evaluation. And then the narrator shares her evaluation. It's a nice comparison for you. Make sure to have everyone in your club, especially new people, go through that tutorial before they give an evaluation. Now on this page at the bottom, we can see a little bit of some other projects here. So if you scroll down, can the person who's typing please mute, please? We want to try to keep this as... Thank you very much. If you scroll down, you see there's all the projects here. And this is a nice way to quickly access any evaluation for any project. Now I will say they don't yet have the project evaluation forms for the engaging humor path yet, but I hope that they add them here. Because it's nice, for example, you're running late to a meeting, you're giving a speech, and you forgot to download the evaluation form from your project. You can come here and get the evaluation form without having to go into your path and launch it. You can also get the evaluation form for someone that you are evaluating. So it's nice that they have everything here, and I hope that they keep adding the new evaluation forms here. It's a nice resource. That's most of our Blue Tile tour. Any questions so far? Any questions on the quick little Blue Tile tour?
I know Douglas was asking how you got there, just to make sure he knows exactly how to get to the blue tiles and then to the evaluation tile.
All right. When you go to Toastmasters.org and select Pathways, there's a Go to Basecamp option there, and it's that. I have a link that I booklink. So once you get to Basecamp, I recommend, bookmarking that link. And then that way it's just a one-click section, a one-click journey to get to Basecamp. All right, we've done our basic tour. Now we're going to start with level 1, because there's one blue tile I forgot, and that's how to get to our path. All paths have 5 levels, and you work on them or progress through them sequentially, starting with level 1. So once you're at your pathway's home page or the start page, and you're in your path, and this is the bottom portion, we see the blue tiles, and then there's a quick view of My Education Transcript. Some of what's in your transcript will show here, and if your path is showing, you can click on Open Curriculum right from here. But if you don't see your path here because you've been looking at some other things, this area only shows about 4 or 5 things. If your path isn't here, click on the My Education Transcript blue tile. If you click there, then you'll go into your transcript and scroll down. If you need to scroll, find your path and click on Open Curriculum. And that will open your path up. So here's a path. When you first go in it, we see the 4 levels, no progress yet. You're able to click on a level to see what's in there. And we can look at level 1. There's a few projects, and we'll go over this in more detail. You can look at your other levels, but you can't access those other levels yet until the preceding level has been completed. So we can look at our levels, so we can see what projects that we have coming up in those levels. You can click the View Details on levels 3 to 5 and find out more about the elective projects. We're going to go back to level 1. The button beside the icebreaker will first say Activate. You have to first give your icebreaker before you can do the other projects in level 1. Just like we started with the Confident Communication book, we all started by giving our icebreaker. The same thing in Pathways. Once you reach the other levels, you can do those projects in any order. Level 1, you start with the icebreaker. You can do the other 2 projects in any order. Levels 2 through 4, you can do those projects in any order once you reach that particular level. In level 5, you have to do the Reflect on your Path last after you do the other projects in level 5. So once we get to level 1, you've opened up your transcript, click Activate on the icebreaker project, and the button switches to Launch. Click Launch to open the project. Now, one thing you need to do in Pathways is to turn off your pop-up blocker, not for everything, but just for this site. And there is a spot, I don't show it here, that gives you directions if you're not sure on how to turn off your pop-up blockers. When you open a launch, when you open a project by launching it, it opens up in a smaller window. That window looks like this. It's smaller than the browser where you have your Basecamp open, and it opens up in a separate window so that you know that it's separate from your Basecamp. And if you close the project window, Basecamp is still open. But one thing when it opens in a separate window is that it's not big enough for you to navigate successfully. You need to open up this window, make it larger, either by maximizing it or dragging the corner to make it larger so that you see all of the navigation arrows. So if you look at this screen, I'm going to show you what it looks like bigger. We'll see an additional arrow on the right and left, and we'll see a menu at the
Okay, it looks like we lost Lori for just a second. As soon as she comes back on, I will make her the presenter.
This is Bart. While we're waiting, could anyone talk me through getting to the blue tiles again? I'm struggling to do that.
Okay, so when you go to Toastmasters International, oh, okay, here's Lori. It's on the Toastmasters page where it has the pathways. When you click on the pathways button, it will take you to the pathways section. And I'm going to make Lori presenter.
All right, here we go. You see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yes. All right, I see. Yes, thank you. Serena, everything's okay now?
Yep, looks good.
All right, so here's our comparison between the two screens. Make sure to have people either maximize or make their screen larger. We're back to level 1, and let's go through what you do in each of these projects. One thing that's really nice is all of the projects in level 1 are the same with all of the paths. Everybody's doing the same thing for level 1, no matter which path they have selected. The icebreaker project, as I've said, you have to do that first. You give a 4 to 6 minute speech. Same thing as what we did when we started Toastmasters. Now the evaluation and feedback project, there's 4 different things, or rather 3 different things you're doing in this project. Once you complete the icebreaker project, you can do the evaluation and feedback project next, or you can do it last. It's up to you. But in this project, you give a brand new 5 to 7 minute speech about anything. You redo the speech you just gave, incorporating the feedback you received. And this has been one of the favorite projects, whether new or seasoned Toastmasters, in level 1, because so often we give a speech and then we're done with that speech, we give another one. And people are enjoying improving a speech and giving it again. And the audience gets to hear how making sometimes just a minor change can really improve a speech. So you give the speech, you give it again, and then you do a speech evaluation. And for new people, this is their first time in evaluating. Make sure to have them go over that how to evaluate tutorial, and there's some nice material and a nice video in this project for them as well. And there is an evaluation form for this speech evaluation. Then the last project in level 1 is the researching and presenting. You give a 5 to 7 minute speech about a topic you've researched. And that's it for level 1. It's just those 4 projects. You're doing, 3 projects. You're doing 5 different things. You're giving a speech. You're giving another speech, repeating that speech, giving one more speech, and evaluating. This level focuses on presenting and speech writing. It's the basis, the beginning of all paths. Now we're to our question slide, so I'm going to check the chat, and if anyone has a question, you're welcome to. So Douglas asked if everyone has to do a double speech in order to complete level 1. Yes, because there's 2 speeches. Now you can if you don't want to give the same speech again, you can do a separate new speech. It's highly recommended that you do the same speech in that project again, just because you get that experience of improving that same speech. But you do have a choice of and I'll put so you do have a choice of what you do, but it's highly recommended that you do that same speech that you first did for that second project again. Any other questions? Did I hear someone? All right, do I hear a question? All right, we're going to go on. Completing a project. You've opened up your icebreaker. You've gone through the material. You've given your speech in a club. Now you've got to complete that project in Pathways so that it unlocks the other two projects in level 1. And it's a little tricky the first time, so I want to show you the part that's causing a little bit of trouble with people so that you can help your members be successful with this. Because until they complete that first project, they can't open up the other ones. When you start a project, it takes you through a short assessment. It just asks a few questions. You'll give an answer, and then at the end of the project, you'll answer those same questions again. Now, this screen is right before that final assessment, because I want to show you this is where you find your evaluation. This is where you can print the entire project if you want to print the PDF. It's about 20 to 30 pages, depending on the project. You can print the whole thing or print any particular page. And in different projects, there's different types of resources. In the Icebreaker project, there's a really nice outline worksheet that they've added. And that's a great resource for us, and especially our new members, to help them get started on how to outline a speech, how to think about organization, and to start to think about transitions between the different parts of the speech. So that's a great resource. Once you click that right arrow, you get to the assessment that's going to ask you the same questions that it did in the beginning of the project. And you answer it, and you click Next. And here's the last question. Now here's what's happening. People are answering it, and then they're clicking that right arrow. And they see, the congratulations. And they're so excited when they see that congratulations page. Can the person who just joined mute, please? They're so excited. They see that congratulations. They do the happy dance. They've completed their first project in Pathways. They go back to their path. But wait a minute. They still can't access the other two projects. What happened? They completed everything. They answered the questions. Well, here's what happened. Let's go back to that assessment. Last question. They've clicked their answer, but they can't click Next because it's not highlighted. Often when people enlarge that screen for the project, they're making it wider so that they can see these arrows, but they're not making it taller. So watch when I go to the next screen and make it taller. Underneath, once you can see this menu, there's a Submit button. And they need to click the Submit button to complete the project.
Interesting.
Exactly. One other thing that could happen is if you're going through the questions and they skip a question, if they get to the last one, they won't see that Submit button either. So two things. If someone says to me, I did the assessment, my project's not completed, I can't go on, I always say, did you see the comparison screen? Because when you click Submit, it shows you a comparison screen that shows you what you answered the first time you did the assessment in the beginning and what you had the second time after you gave your speech. And if they look at you like you're crazy, then you know they didn't see the assessment, and just make sure that they click Submit. Make sure that they've answered all the questions and click Submit. Then they'll see the congratulations screen again. Saw this before. Is this for real this time? Once you click Submit on the assessment, close that project window, then you'll see a little icebreaker. You'll see a little check mark by icebreaker, and the button will change from Launch to Evaluate, and now you have Activate buttons by the other two projects. You can go into one or both of those projects and start reading them. Now, the Evaluate button beside the icebreaker doesn't have anything to do with your speech evaluation. It has to do with you being able to get Toastmasters International evaluation of that project. So when you click it, you're asked some questions, you can put in some comments, and it goes to Toastmasters International. If you don't give any feedback, then after 10 days, the Evaluate button will go away, and it'll go back to Launch. And you're able to open up any project you've completed at any time. But now I've completed the Icebreaker project, and I have access to these other two projects. Any questions on the basics of level 1? I'm going to check the chat. There are a few little quirks to Pathways. Once you know them, and I'm sharing the quirks I know so that you guys can share with your members. Usually once people get started on the Icebreaker and get into level 1, they learn how the system operates, and then it doesn't matter anymore. They're having such fun with the projects and giving their speeches. Any questions on level 1? All right, I have a question. How to get evaluated for speeches. Are you Stacy?
Hi. Hi. Can you hear me?
Is this Stacy? I see your question, or is this someone else?
I just joined. This is Shanti. I just joined, so I don't know what. I don't know so far the subject, so I'm just listening. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. So the question is how to get evaluated for speeches. And I'm going to go back. Will this let me go back? Let me go back a couple here. You want to print out your evaluation resource and take it to the meeting so that your evaluator has that to evaluate you. Now, because the projects in level 1 are all the same, and because new members aren't used to bringing anything to meetings since they don't have a manual now, often they'll forget, especially their first speech or two, to bring that evaluation resource. What some clubs are doing is they're printing out copies of either just the Icebreaker evaluation or all the evaluations for level 1 and having them on hand just to make sure until their new members get used to bringing that form that they have the forms available for them. If you are mentoring someone, you might bring a copy of their evaluation form for the first couple of speeches, again, just to help them until they get used to it. If you have a member who says, I don't have a printer at home, I can't print it, make sure that they have someone that they can ask to print. We do that in my clubs. We have a couple of people designated as our official Pathways printers who are glad to help out if someone's not able to print out an evaluation. But it is the responsibility of the speaker to bring that form for the evaluator, just like we would bring our manuals and give it to our evaluator with the traditional education program. Now I have another question. What if someone went through all of the assessments and closed each project before they did them? And that's possible because the system doesn't know whether you did the speech. It just knows whether you did the pre-assessment, clicked through the screens, and did the post-assessment. If someone has closed out all their projects by going through the screens and answering the questions on the assessment, even though they're marked complete, they're not complete. They need to give the speech, and they need to do everything in the project. There's no way to uncomplete a project, but they can't move on to the next level until the VPE approves the level completion. So that's a check to make sure that everyone does the speeches, because you might accidentally go through the assessment, answering the questions, and, oh, oops, it's complete, but I haven't given the speech. That might happen. So you can't undo a check mark on a project, but just make sure that you give the speech, whether you do it before or after the project. Now, the VPE does have a way to know whether someone's done the speech. They should know if they're in the meetings. They should know if there's an evaluation form or not. So there's ways that the VPEs can check whether the work has been done or whether the speech has been done. Some clubs there's a couple of different main sites that clubs use for agendas, and that's a way that you can easily check what was done. Or you could, if you have a question, you could check with the member and check on their evaluation forms if you have a question whether something was done. So they might have done it at your club, they might have completed a speech at another club as well. Okay, we're going to go on here. Let me get back to where we were. Any other questions on level 1? As I say, basic, it's the same for all paths, which is great. That way, you know as a VPE what everyone's doing, no matter which path they have, when they start on their path.
We do have some questions in the chat.
I saw... Okay, Jerry, we're going over this thing, the next one, and I've answered the other questions in there. So you've gone through all the projects, you've given the speeches, and now you're ready to have that level completion approved and move on to the next level. So here's a view of a path where all of the projects have been completed. We see they all have check marks. It looks like this project, researching and presenting, was completed before evaluation and feedback, which is fine. These two projects can be completed in any order after the icebreaker's done. And now that these are marked complete, there's an activate button beside this last thing in your level 1 completion. This is you requesting to have the Basecamp manager approve your completion of this level so that you can go on to the next level. Now pay attention. It's kind of tricky on how to complete this. First, you click the button that says Activate. The button changes to Launch. You click the Launch button. A PDF opens up that tells you to click the Mark Complete button. You click the Mark Complete button. All right, how many times have we clicked this button? We've clicked it 3 times, so it's click, click, click. Okay, I was joking that it was very difficult. It's very easy. It just takes multiple clicks. I always say it's like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz, clicking her heels, right? I can say that. I'm from Kansas. So we click, click, click. And then the status will show pending completion approval. The button changes to Launch. You can't access level 2 yet. You have to wait for your Basecamp manager, probably your VPE, to complete this. So you probably want to give them chocolates or whatever they want for bribes. Just kidding. Something that I want to point out, though, there is an email that goes out when you submit a level completion, but it doesn't necessarily go directly to your Basecamp manager. It goes to whatever address your club has set up in Club Central. And if you don't know what that is, make sure to have your leadership team, your president and VPE, take a look at what address that is. That's where the level completion request will go when you submit it. Now, it might be that they have the emails going to the vice president membership, which is common. And that may be okay. Just make sure to have the vice president membership forward it to the other base camp managers. But you don't have to depend on the email in order to approve the level completion. The base camp manager can go into base camp manager section anytime, see the request, and approve it. As a VPE, you should know approximately when someone's completing a level, especially this level 1, to know when there might be a request in there. Just work with your VPE so that they can get that approved for you. So you're waiting. Any question on submitting that level completion? We'll get to the other part in a minute. Serena, how are we doing on time?
We have 5 minutes.
All right, we have time. We will go to well, I had my, all right, but that's not all. Because this is Basics 1, I don't have the Base Camp Manager section slides in here for how to approve a level completion. We are going to do some other webinars and we'll cover that. But it is when that has been completed and your level's been approved, you do need to have the Base Camp Manager go into Club Central and put in the education request for your level. Because if that doesn't happen, you can still go on to the next level, but you're not able, you won't get that education award. You won't get those magic letters after your name, such as VC1 if you completed Visionary Communication 1, and that education award won't show on your Distinguished Club program. But they just have to go into Club Central under Submit Education Awards, select the name, select the path and level, and submit it. It's just that easy. That's all they have to do. And then you'll have that education award in your profile, and it'll show up on your DCP. And we have another question. I'm going to go back to here that I saw. Someone asked, the introduction to Toastmaster mentoring showed up at level 2. Is this correct? Seems like it should be part of level 1. The Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring Project is a project that's in level 2. And that project is one project that's the same in every level 2, no matter what the path is. Level 2 has some variations between paths, but the one project in level 2 that's in every single path is Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring. Once you complete level 2, there's a whole mini module of mentoring that will become available to you if you choose to complete that. But that's a topic for another webinar. The requirements of DTM, I've got a sheet on my resources that we'll go over. It's very similar to what it is now. As far as paths, you do have to complete 2 separate paths, as well as there's other requirements such as a year of district leadership, a year of club leadership, being a club coach, being a mentor or sponsor, and a couple other things. And I've got a sheet on that as far as the requirement. I have, if you either note this link, take a picture of it, or I've got the QR code if you want to scan that. I have a lot of links. I have a lot of resources, rather, on pathways that I've created, and there's a few from Toastmasters International. One of the resources is, as I mentioned before, a nice one-page comparison sheet that compares all the required projects. I have a lot of other resources on helping you understand pathways and helping you understand pathways and have your members and your guests understand pathways. There's a lot of different resources there. You can email me if you have any questions on pathways at this email address, pathways@62toast.com. Tonight was just covering some basics of pathways. We do want to have more webinars for you that will go more in depth to some of the other areas. So put in the chat or let us know what other topics you'd like to cover. I've got some ideas for about a half dozen or so different ones, because I think there's a lot to pathways, and doing webinars can help everyone understand it. So I hope that this webinar is helpful for you. Please put any final comments or questions in here. And I'm checking the chat for here. Someone mentioned that mentoring in Pathways has a whole different meaning than the former program. Even with Pathways, clubs want to continue the mentoring program, the mentoring that they're doing now for their new members. And I'm going to have a whole session on mentoring in Pathways. To me, you would want to mentor not only your new members, you want to mentor any of your members that are starting their journey in Pathways to make sure that they can get going and keep going and be successful in Pathways. But there is a Toastmasters, because of the importance of mentoring, they developed some extra projects on mentoring that are available to you once you've completed level 2. But we'll talk more about that in a separate webinar. Any final questions? I'm going to wrap up here and let you guys ask any final questions or go. I appreciate you attending, and special thanks to Serena for setting this up.
Hi, this is Shanti. Hi, this is Shanti once again back.
Hi, Shanti.
Yes, thank you for wonderful information, though I joined in the end of the time, but the way how you are caring with good explanation is so good. And I am from Pioneer 17 Club.
Okay, great.
And yes, and I have completed almost 6 speeches, but not yet entered in the pathways. I will start entering in the pathways, and I will ask you if I need any help.
All right, great, great. I'm glad to help with it.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything we do in Toastmasters, we work together to help each other because we all.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you all.
If there's any other questions or comments, please feel free to say them or put them in the chat. But I appreciate you being here tonight.
Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Lori. This was great.
I can't believe we had 50 people.
I know, it's awesome. And a lot of people who... Oh, yes. Will you be making a presentation at District 11 meeting?
I don't know if you're meaning the deck, Joel, or something else. I presented at some of the Division A PLIs. I was supposed to present at the one in Indianapolis in January, but because of the weather, I couldn't make it. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this webinar, so we can get this information out.
Oh, the conference.
Unfortunately, the District 62 conference is on the same weekend as the District 11.
Oh, bummer.
I can't be in 2 places at once, and I am committed to the District 62 conference. Otherwise, I'd be in Carmel, but unfortunately, I can't.
I think we do have a pathway session, though, if I remember right. Yeah, this was really good. So when do you think you could do the next one?
Yeah, what do you... See what feedback you get from this, in case... Are you still recording? I don't know if you're still...
Oh, oops. Yeah, let me...